Clay, Star Trek heard our cries in our Enterprise Season 3 wrap-up where we talked about WWE for about 15 minutes at the end of that episode. Check that out if you missed it. And they gave us a wrestler in this one. The third wrestler in Star Trek history, the second from Enterprise. The Rock was in Voyager before all of this happened. But
who was the other wrestler in Enterprise?
That was going to be my bit of trivia. He's in Broken Bow. I don't know if you remember. It's not a wrestler that we would remember. Yeah, he wasn't really a wrestler. He played a wrestler in a movie, but he was not actually a wrestler. It's Tiny Tony, right? Tiny Tony Lister.
Tiny Lister, yeah.
Tiny
he
Lister.
Was in. He was the bad guy in No Holds Barred, and he did I think 2 matches, but was not a wrestler, and was carried very heavily through the matches by Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage.
Well, he's on the Memory Alpha, so he is a wrestler. I'm sorry that you're incorrect about that.
I mean, he was in a wrestling match, so I guess technically he was a wrestler, yes.
Donald Trump's a wrestler, then this guy can be a wrestler too, Clay. Big Show's in this one. He's credited as the Big Show too, and there's no way that you can't see the credit for the Big Show roll up and around. I don't know his real name, but I assume it's not
Paul.
Big Show.
It's Paul White, I believe.
Paul White. He's here as unnamed Orion slave trader. Slave trader number 1 is his official credit. So he looks
like Shrek.
He does look like Shrek.
He looks like Shrek. There's no way to get around it. He looks like Shrek wearing LARPing armor.
Yeah. Better or worse Orions than the latest season of Discovery, where they look like mannequins.
That's a tough call.
Maybe this is better for the main portion of it. The Orions are a segment of this episode.
Sure.
And maybe there's something we can talk about the recent trend to include Orions and everything, because they're in everything at this point for some reason. So let's do that. Let's we don't do the clips anymore, so let's just get into what the statistics, the metadata about this episode is. This is Borderland. It's the 4th episode of the 4th season. It came out on October 29th, 2004. It is one of 3 in the Soong Augments arc, one of 9 in the Augments arc overall. Written by Ken Lezebnik, directed by David Livingston. In-universe date is May 17, 2154. In this episode, Archer needs the help of a criminal to prevent war with the Klingons. Part 1 of 3. So we're entering what Season 4 is going to be about Enterprise, where they have these mini trilogy or double episodes to flesh out storylines. This one is going to be one of 3. They don't call them all the same title, but they are one continuous story for the next 3 episodes. And they'll do that a couple of times before the season wraps up. That's kind of the way that this season is going to work on Enterprise. But here we are with Borderland. We got a new Soong brother. We get a taste of Orion slave trades. We get some intergalactic political machinations. But what did you think in general about Borderlands?
Well, boy, am I happy to find out there are 9 more episodes involving these fucking guys.
Well, to be fair, the Augments arc includes Khan, the movies. It includes
really?
Space.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what that is talking about. Yeah.
Okay, because I thought that stuff with the Augments was some of the worst writing I've ever seen on this show.
They're better than humans in every way possible except for acting capability.
Yeah. You know, this was a really weird episode for me.
It is
because it feels it's the first episode of a trilogy of episodes, but it kind of feels like it should be the second episode or something, because they just kind of dump you in to this story, like the reveal of. I was shocked that they didn't give Brent Spiner any kind of interesting reveal or something. Be like, hey, we got Brent Spiner on the show. He's just kind of there. And they just kind of start talking to him about stuff, and he's in jail.
They bring him in right at the start. Like there's no character is going to be showing up, and you're like, who's this character? And then he walks on.
Well, no,
stage.
Just even anything interesting visually about how you're going to introduce this character. It's just there he is. It's him. But even that character, they just kind of start in on explaining what he's done and his backstory, and it's not super interesting to me. And all of the stuff on the augment Klingon ship is just really bad, like soap opera writing with these characters that I don't care about. So all the stuff that they're saying means nothing to me. I was getting confused as to what actually the story of this episode was.
Mm-hmm. Because of the Orion stop off
because
where they go to the slave trade. Yeah,
they're going after these guys, but then they spend the entire episode on the Orion slave planet. And I was confused as to how they got there, because I wasn't sure who showed up and started shooting the Enterprise, if that was them in the Klingon ship, or who steals. Do they steal the crew members? Who steals the crew members?
The Orion ships are confusingly similar to the Klingon ships because they're green and somewhat bird-like, but those are the Orions who kidnap the crew members.
Yeah, I found that kind of confusing, because I don't know why the Orions just randomly showed up and started stealing people.
So the Borderland is the border between Orion territory and Klingon territory. So they go there looking for the augments who are in Klingon land, but they think that they're in this area that they just tell us in this episode that borders Orion and Klingon territory. So they run into both ships in this episode.
I don't know. That wasn't really tracking for me as far as what exactly was going on or why they were doing this stuff. This episode really kind of felt like an episode of Discovery to me. It had the same kind of like structure and pacing as a Discovery episode, and felt very much like it was just doing a lot of stuff that was not, there wasn't much character work going on. It was jumping around from story, like all of the augment stuff. It was just seemed like I was watching the Romulan incestuous twins angle from Picard.
Yeah,
I don't know.
A little bit of more of a John Bon Jovi vibe to it, I think.
Oh yeah,
a little bit of hair metal going on in the background.
It's nice to see. It's nice to see that they still, even years and years before the original series or TNG, all of the rebels still wear 1980s WWF rockers costumes. I don't know. I don't really know what to think about this episode, because like Soong didn't land for me as a character. I like they were going for this Hannibal Lecter thing, and it's like fine, but I don't really know why this guy is a big deal. I don't know. It just it felt really incomplete to me. Like a lot of it felt like it was hacked down or something. I don't know.
Hannibal Lecter in the sense that they have to use him to find what they're looking for. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like, you're bringing the bad guy onto the ship to help you find, because he's the only one that knows, and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. That stuff just wasn't really landing for me.
I watched this episode with Amy just by coincidence, and she was completely befuddled by what was going on. And what I thought was interesting was that the things that I most like about this episode, or the only things that I think about, are stuff that no one unfamiliar with this material will pick up on. So I, like, for instance, I think that the bringing in another Soong, but playing him very similar to the other family members of the Soong family that we've run into, which is that they're trying to sort of build a better human, right? They bring in one that's tied into the Khan storyline, which is kind of fascinating to me. Like, that's a good idea to do, and it's a good idea to have a Soong family member do that, be a kind of a mad scientist who's into genetic manipulation and stuff like that. It's a different version of building an android that Noonien Soong would do in the future as his version of what it is. And we've talked about in TNG when Noonien Soong was in an episode. He's a very strange character that TNG wasn't willing to comment on. He builds androids in his image, right? That he thinks are perfect humans, and he builds copies of himself and gives them different personalities and gives them sort of whimsical fantasy names, and is more of like a magical sorcerer than a true scientist in a lot of sense. And so I think his name is Arik. Arik Soong in this one is an argument in favor of genetic manipulation. And I'm like, this is kind of fascinating that this family is doing all this stuff. And the other thing is that the augments are clearly Khan's people, And that's not really made explicitly clear. And if you don't know who Khan is, then that doesn't make any sense whatsoever in Amy's sense. So I thought that the schism between the two of us, where she was like, what the fuck is that? What are they talking about in this episode? And me going, wow, I'm surprised that they're not clearing up any of this for anybody. This is a show that's in its 4th season is just going, fuck it, we're doing it for the fans. That's what we're going to do at this point.
Sure,
like I'm not writing to explain anything. And I think it's actually a criticism of this episode, and I'm curious if they continue to do this, where they start writing Enterprise just for fans of the material, and they're like, we don't need to explain what's going on here. This is all going to be fine. And of course, this is a 3-parter. They may very well in the next episode explain all of this stuff, and they just made you wait until they got to it. But I think for people unfamiliar with the material, a little bit of explanation and a little bit less of the Orion slave trade market would have gone a long way for this one, I think, to make it a better, more appealing episode.
I would like to say that after 5 years of doing this podcast, I would like to consider myself as familiar with the material, and I had no fucking clue what was going on. I didn't know, like, I knew that I knew that it was Brent Spiner out of makeup, so it was a Soong character.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it was a different one. Like I like it didn't even occur to me.
You thought it was Noonie?
I didn't even know. I didn't even know. He's played that character like 8 different times, and it's always just him. And so I didn't know who this guy was in relationship to the guy who built Data, in relationship to the guy who was running the planet in Picard.
Yes.
Whether or not those were all the same character. I couldn't remember if they were the same character or different or what.
I had to refresh myself. Noonie, the guy from Picard is Noonie and Soong's son, which I didn't remember, but that's the relationship there. This is Noonion's grandfather or something like that. He's just the older version. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like I wasn't tracking. I knew the name obviously, and I knew it was Brent Spiner, so I knew and I kind of understood what the character was a bit. But like, yeah, they were giving a lot of exposition that was not really explained, because like they were talking about the augmented people and stuff, and
did you make the connection to the augments, who they were supposed to be?
Yeah. Yes. I didn't draw the line directly to Khan, but Archer said something along the lines of like, the last time they tried to do that, it went really poorly for the humans or some shit. Basically implying the Eugenics War.
Right.
Which is not something
by this point.
Right. Which is not something you would know if you are unfamiliar with the material.
Correct.
And like, I got the reference, but I didn't draw a line directly to Khan, because I mean, I don't know who's out there doing eugenics stuff. It could be more than just Khan. It could be other people. I don't know.
Well, I don't think these are. So these, I don't think these are. I'm pretty sure these are not people who fought in the Eugenics War, because these were embryos that were frozen after that had happened. So it's the same process, but Khan isn't going to walk in the door at one of these times. I don't think. Right.
Right. Yeah. But it was. I found it. Like, I didn't find it so confusing that I couldn't watch the episode, but I didn't really particularly enjoy it.
I would agree that I think my major problem with it was that the slave trade stuff feels like it's so important that it should be tied into the narrative in some way, but it's really just a side quest that they have to go on it kills a little bit of time, and it's just this kind of, from the show's perspective, it's like, let's bring on the Orions, who haven't been seen at this point since TOS. So this was kind of like a major thing to bring back this old race, and they'd never seen male Orions apparently in the series. There was only females that you had seen up to this point. So there was like kind of a fleshing out of their species, I guess. It matters not for the episode. It's more interesting in a Trek history kind of way. But in terms of what it does to the episode, it just makes it seem extremely disjointed. And maybe it's just the fact that we haven't recorded an Enterprise in a while, but I was like, why are they still at Earth? I was like, oh, right, the ship just got fixed.
That was my favorite part of the episode, is after Archer goes to talk to Soong, and they have to go on this mission. They cut to the bridge of the ship, and everybody's wearing like vacation wear.
Yes, yeah.
Like they're all wearing stuff like
boys.
yeah. They just got pulled from the Jamaican timeshare they were staying at to come back to the ship. You know, I went to Jamaica once, and
Archer asked for 9 kilos of the tartar sauce,
and he just left it there. He just left it there. He wouldn't eat it because they didn't have the tartar sauce.
Are you noticing? I'm really noticing the difference in production at this point. I feel like every other shot is a close up of somebody's face in the new season.
Lots of close-ups.
A lot of close-ups.
Like that was another thing that I found distracting. Was like after the scene where people get abducted, they do this hard cut close up to Archer where he goes, 9 people were taken from the ship, and then they cut away to Soong. And I didn't even realize they were in the same room together,
right?
Until they cut back to that close up on Archer again. So I was just this episode just felt really strange to me and very disjointed. Like it not to move away from the the production thing, but like
no, it's fine. We've talked about it for a long time.
I could not believe that the entire half of the episode they spend with the augments is just this stupid.
Power play,
mutiny power play thing. Like I don't give a shit about any of these characters, and they're spending all this time with these people in this power play and acting very, very poorly. And so that's why I was so confused by the Orion thing, because I was like, why don't you have the augments be the ones that steal the people and sell them to the Orions? At least tie these things together somehow, instead of, you know, I don't know. It was so, the two things they were doing were so disparate that I couldn't, it was stopping me from tracking what was going on with the episode because they were not connected whatsoever until the end. And like if
you were unaware that this was a trilogy at the time you were watching it, right? I think you texted me after you'd watched. You were aware because it said to be continued, and you're like, oh, there's another episode of this. But were you under the impression that how are they going to wrap this up in the next 5 minutes? Kind of thing?
No, I remembered previously that you said most of them were 2-parters. So I was as it was rolling, and I was like, okay, this is not going to wrap up. I assumed it was the first half of a 2-part. I didn't realize it was a 3-parter though.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, so the augment thing, the entire purpose of the augment storyline just seems to be to demonstrate that they have some sort of attachment to the way that their father, who they call father, Soong, would do things. So it seems to be a kind of like loyalty test for Soong, basically to establish that. I'm not really sure I need 17 minutes to do that.
No.
Really?
No.
Like, it seems fairly clear cut. Even if you just have the last scene where they pick him up and they want to rescue him, and the reveal at that point is that he was their creator, is like, oh, there's a little bit like, that's kind of all I need to go on there. Knowing what the Soongs are up to, and you can just kind of assume, basically, based on the way that Spiner plays Soong here, that something is up in that regard. It's way too much time. I did like them hijacking the Klingon ship. I thought that was kind of neat. Like, that's some of the best Enterprise action I've ever seen, even though it does rely a lot on demonstrating strength by when you kick somebody, they fly like 50 feet through the air, which I always think is kind of funny.
Yeah.
J.G. Hertzler is there in his final Star Trek appearance as the Klingon commander.
Yeah, that was another thing. What a waste of that guy. Well, I heard the voice. I heard the voice and I was like, "Oh, good! I'm psyched to see him again." And then he just gets killed or jettisoned into space
because he's been in Enterprise already. So if you've been watching, you're like, "Why is that lawyer guy on this ship? Like, what's going on here?" And then he dies, and they shoot him into space, as you say. Yeah, that's his final appearance, though. So in terms of the augment, well, I don't think there's a lot to say about the augment stuff. It's terribly acted, terribly written, and I don't think it needs all the time that it needs to get what it does accomplished. Would you agree? Do you think there's anything to add to it?
No, I don't think so.
I think Soong is more interesting.
Yes.
First off, in a general sense, Brent Spiner is one of the weirdest actors, I think, in the world. I think he's very strange. I think that the fact that he is responsible for one of the greatest character creations in Star Trek and probably beyond that into like a sci-fi genre or however far you want the ripples of this wave to go with his portrayal of Data. It's amazing to me that his greatest character is the complete opposite of how he plays literally every other role.
Yes.
Every other role, he's just this like hammy lore character. Any show he does, any other character on Star Trek, it's a completely over the top, like emotions on his sleeve, smirking at everything kind of performance. And it makes Data stand out so he must have just had incredible focus to be like, don't do anything that you think is the right choice while you're playing this character. Just completely button it down. It really brings the Data performance out, and it also, in some ways, just makes Spiner seem even stranger. You know, like, because I guess to tie it into this episode, I don't think the way that he plays this Soong is the right approach to play Soong. I think that this Soong is too much of a lore character, and he should have a better point and be more of a decent seeming person, I think.
Yeah. I do wonder if the reason that he does that is because he is fighting Data so badly that he wants to just like do the polar opposite every time. I agree. I don't think that this is the right characterization because he comes off as kind of like a mad scientist evil character. He comes off like
sinister right from the get-go.
He comes off like Hannibal Lecter. Yeah. And where he was doing what he was doing for what he thought was the betterment of mankind, not because he's an insane person with a god complex, although he's probably that too. But
right, that seems to be the way that they're going to go with it. It's more of a, because he ends the episode by saying, "Let's go rescue your brothers and sisters." So he's adopted this kind of like father persona, like a god creator character. I think it just goes to the lengths that Enterprise continues to not really like to touch on subjects, because he has a point here when he's talking to Archer about like, you know, your father died because I wasn't allowed to do this genetic research, and like think of all the suffering that this has caused by not being allowed to do this kind of research because people are scared of what happened in the past with the Eugenics War. He has a point. I'm really annoyed that they spent so long in the Orion market that they can't talk to the Soong character, and I would have had him be much more of a sympathetic, less of a plotting Machiavellian character right from the get-go. Have him be someone who is almost wrongfully imprisoned, right? Like this is it's an Earth that's overreacting to his genetics research, and he's done good things for people. He's shown this incredible progress in his research. They come in and destroy his work every day, he says, in the jail cell and stuff like that. And I think that Spiner's performance is not right. You know right from the start that he's not a good guy, and I think that really undermines him as an interesting and appealing character, someone that you can get behind and be like, oh, what's this guy's thing, and like what's the conflict between him and Archer going to be eventually. I think that first scene with him is actually really, really great, at least the way it's written, for the way that they present him as someone who is imprisoned for you know, these reasons that he thinks is wrongful. And that line about the fact that they're destroying his research should be like, he should be like, it should be sad, because he's like, he's this brilliant mind who is not allowed to do anything because of, you know, what may or may not have happened in the past with this kind of stuff. And now they're just throwing away research that would save the Earth or save humanity or whatever. Like I feel like that is kind of more of the characterization is sort of like, he's not mad about it so much as he is sad that it's all going to waste, sort of. Right. And he can see, they might tie this in, but he sees the kids as the sort of ultimate accomplishment of his career, his life's work is this, like this is the outcome that we've created, this kind of a thing. It's tough because I do love the fact that it's a Soong family member, and Spiner's the only one who can do that because they've already played so many identical people, all look exactly the same, and it's played by this guy. So it makes total sense to bring him in. It's just that bad aspect of his acting capability that he has no middle ground between Data and lore characters. There's no grounded Soong. I guess the older Soong in Picard, but honestly, I think that he's grounded only because he doesn't do anything, and I don't even know why he's in the show whatsoever at that point. He doesn't really have a chance to extend, but he doesn't. If they had just taken that guy's personality from Picard and put him into this, I think that it's a better match for the material here, and less of a, as you're saying, Hannibal Lecter, bring him to the slave market. He's the only one who can know. Oh, of course he betrays Archer. Archer gets him back in kind of a funny little bit where he does the handcuffs over and over again to sort of stop him from getting away. But
yeah, that was good.
It didn't. I don't know. I expected more from it, and it didn't deliver on it.
Yeah. Like I that was also what was kind of distracting me a bit is that in the show they are treating him as though he is just this like intense flight risk and this mastermind that you can't let near a computer and all this kind of stuff. And which is, I guess that's fine, but I don't think that they did anything to really make that worth anything or or earn any of that stuff. It's just talking about how he likes to escape and talking about how one time he, rewired the data pad so all the cell doors opened or some shit. Yeah. Like he's really he's invented cures for diseases and genetically engineered superhumans, but he's really proud of the fact that he rewired the cell doors from a data pad.
He's a little bit of a trickster. A little bit of he likes to play jokes on people. It's that kind of a like whimsical, tricksy.
Yeah, like I think that's the thing. I think the whimsical trickster aspect of it isn't landing with me because it seems like he should be someone who's more dedicated to his own research kind of thing and less he's just gonna fuck with people and I don't know.
Well, I guess what's interesting is that it doesn't seem to be the show's intent because I think the way that you would strengthen Soong is to have the augments be better. And I from watching those augment scenes, I really get the sense that the choices there are intentional. That's way too many bad actors in there to have it not be some sort of like conscious choice as to what they were doing. And down to the script writing for them is heightened, like, I loved you. Will you turn on him with me? And it's like, why are they talking like this? Like, I would expect unless are they trying to do a Wrath of Khan type performance with those guys to make them thematically match what they do with Khan later on?
I wish Soong had been like, Jonathan, they may be superhuman in many ways, but they love theater and they're so bad at it. Yeah,
that one piece of genetic code I just can't alter is their
nothing. There's no such thing as a free lunch, and one thing had to give, and the Shakespeare gene just didn't translate.
Jonathan, I wrote a bot that would give IMDb ratings of 10 stars to every single bad movie out there just to cancel them out. That kind of a thing.
I hear you stole a data pad and fed it 1,000 hours of Tim Burton movies, and then it wrote one, and the AI had to write one, and it was hilarious. Yes, I'm actually quite proud of that little number.
Is that the intent? Are they supposed to be bad?
I don't know.
Is it intent that they're bad? Like, they're all bad. They're all very bad, which is, this is played enough in TV where you could have an episode where not everyone would be bad in that role.
Sure. Yeah. This is one of those episodes where it's like the third ranked augment is like a young Daniel Craig or something like that.
Right.
And it's like, this is when he's doing TV.
Oscar Isaac, because his appearance is unnamed.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. I honestly don't know. And like, it doesn't help that the material, like, I feel like if the material was less ridiculous, they might not have stood out as being so bad at it.
It's true.
But the material is just, it's so much reminds me of Picard, of that Romulan side plot. Even the way, like, they're talking to each other and then violently push each other against the wall and start kissing, and then they're like, not now. It just it all had the same like kind of trying to be edgy and sexy, but it's just kind of coming off as weird and trying too hard.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a backdoor pilot for an augment show, and it just never really landed.
I'm sure we'll have more of the augments coming up. Let's talk about T'Pol. T'Pol gets a commandership in Starfleet this episode. Has a couple conversations with Trip about
those.
He's asking if she got what she was looking for on her honeymoon. Trip doesn't get an answer.
Those conversations were hilarious because every single one of them, I think there was 2 or maybe 3, involved them getting 2 words into the conversation and then something exploded and stopped them from talking any further.
Yeah. Can't get it done. Can't talk about the honeymoon. We'll see where that goes. And the other thing is she gets kidnapped and is in the Orion prison camp. Really highlighting to me they have no idea what to do with the fact that she can't control her emotions anymore. All it's done is freeze up T'Pol to be scared in those situations, and that doesn't add anything interesting to those angles, really.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Was she supposed to be scared in that situation?
I mean, she's acting extremely emotional. I assume that's a play on the fact that she can't control her emotions anymore. At this point,
I honestly didn't even notice it because I mean, she was trying to talk down Ensign Shoemaker there, or whatever.
Attack. Yeah.
And so like she was the calm one compared to him. So I wasn't. It didn't even occur to me that she was acting.
I was getting heavy.
Character.
She's anxious vibes off of him being anxious. Like that seemed like that was the performance that was coming through, and she's controlling it. There's no point to this storyline or character development because what makes them interesting is not doing that. You know, they just become another bland human character if you just make them scared of stuff. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to talk about that. Any thoughts about any of T'Pol's activities during this episode? It's really just the commander, Trip, and then getting captured.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious when Big Show picked her up like a toy.
Yes.
I assume they did it twice, and I was looking for wires, and I didn't see any wires, and I don't doubt that he could just do that. I mean, she probably weighs like 108 pounds or something.
Yeah, there's photos of him doing it to the director on Memory Alpha. The same.
Oh, really?
So he was. I think he was just going around picking people up and waving them around like that. So,
yeah,
which is what it is his license to do that if you're 7 feet tall and 300 pounds or whatever. I don't have much else to say about her. Really, no one else has anything to do in this episode.
I continue. I did like the stuff with Trip. They are. Like I was joking about it a minute ago, how every time they tried to talk, they got like one sentence in and then something exploded. I hope they don't keep doing that because I think you can get away with doing that like once. But if they're just going to keep hedging everything by never having them have a chance to talk in a very inorganic way, I think that's going to get tiresome. But I do like the awkwardness between them and stuff. And you know, they do that thing that she did last season that I think worked to soften her character with him, where she takes a minute to actually honestly answer the question, where she's like, "We don't have honeymoons. I went and meditated and stuff like that." Like that still works, I think. But hopefully they find something else better to do with them moving forward.
Yeah, hopefully it develops into something. I mean, it will. I would have to assume, because I can't see it just continuing like this for a little bit. On the explosions, it's another production thing. I think the explosions and stuff look better in digital than on film when they do it. I think the explosions and the special effects look improved this season to me for some reason. I feel like they're almost recognizing it and they're going overboard, because like I feel like every episode this season has had the consoles blowing up constantly, and there's a lot of exploding consoles in the show now. I don't know. Do you notice that? Like I feel even the ship CGI looks better. Things look clearer in that stuff.
It looks pretty solid. The explosions, I think they are like packing extra shit into those special effects or something, because there were more open flame fireballs blasting out of things in this episode than I've ever seen. You get one out of the wall, and then you get one at Reed's station. The panel doesn't just like spark and smoke; like a fireball comes out of it.
Got no eyebrows after it's over. Yeah, I like the way the show looks in the 4th season. It does look daytime soap opera-y, like it has that digital look to it, but I think it's impacting the direction and the choices they're making and making it look a little bit less. It's moved away from the generic 90s Star Trek look in a lot of ways. I feel it looks different as a different kind of show. I think people might make the argument that it looks like a CW UPN show a little bit more at this point, which is maybe not something that you ultimately want to go in that direction. But I think it helps to give it a distinction from the other shows, at least. So I can't really complain about that. I think it's interesting. I don't know how much more I'll have to say about how the show looks at this point, but it does seem like it's changed since the previous seasons, even if they are over close-up action shots and stuff like that.
You know, I actually think it looks a little bit less like a UPN show than it used to. Because when I think about the UPN era Star Trek shows like this and the later was all of Deep Space Nine on UPN?
No, Voyager was on UPN.
Deep Space Nine also was, right, at some point?
It might, as DS9 was syndicated. I don't know if it was on UPN as a first run syndication.
All right, maybe they did reruns or something.
They might do repeats, yeah.
But I always in my mind, those shows are always a lot softer, lighting wise, and just like everything kind of blends together a little bit more. And this season, it seems like the lighting is a lot more stark than it has been in the past. Yeah, like a lot more heavy shadows and stuff.
Yeah, it's a clean image. Like when I have to do the thumbnail work for the podcast, I'm like, oh, all these still images look pretty good. Like there's a clean image to them that is nice and different from looking at like Klingon episodes of DS9 where it's like, this is a lot of mud. This is just a picture of mud that I'm looking at. Before we go to our final thoughts, any thoughts about the Orions whatsoever? I guess we kind of teased at the start. They've been playing with the Orions a lot since Enterprise. Discovery has them. I think Picard certainly has them. Or is that the other way around? Discovery certainly has them.
Around,
Picard might have them. To me, they feel... The impression that I get from Enterprise onward, why they would use the Orions, is that they're a species that kind of lines up with what I think has changed in the franchise over the decades, which is that they're no longer really super interested in forming a nuanced look of what a culture looks like for an alien race. They're like, these are the slavers.
Sure.
They act like slavers, and they've done that in every single episode of the show that they've come along. They're a long way from the Cardassians, right? Which is like military junta overtakes the civilian command. It becomes a military dictatorship. The civilians are starving back home on Earth, but the military is like, we have to keep conquering. We have nothing. We've stripped our own planet so empty of resources. We have to annex other planets and then take their resources for us. There's like a culture to the older species and things. Even the Borg have like this little hierarchy, and they bring the Queen in for better or worse. The later Trek series are really just feel like they've gone back onto the TOS thing of the species just has a trait, and their thematic relevance is just how they line up with that trait of the thing that we all know about them. So these are slavers, and slavers are bad guys, and they're going to be the generic bad guy. Anything more than that to them? Do you think I'm way off base, or you think that they have done better work in the recent stuff, or is this just am I missing the depth of the Orions here?
No, they've been pretty one note across everything. I think Tendi on Lower Decks is probably the most interesting one, because she does talk about the other elements of the Orion culture, and that it's not just all slaves and slave girls and stuff. And they tried to do something interesting with the head honcho from Discovery, where she was, trying to actually cut deals and stuff. But at the end of the day, she was still just like a mustache twirling bad guy for the most part. So, yeah, I don't know. They're I think they're one of those races that is underdeveloped but also recognizable. So you can always just kind of throw them in and have people go, "Oh, cool, the Orions," and just, you know, you don't really need to do anything with them other than just have them show up and for a couple scenes.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could compare them to like the TOS Klingons, right? But I feel like the Klingons in TOS had at least a Cold War analogy going on. There's like, you know, you kind of see them as competing empires. I don't know what the Orions really are supposed to represent.
Right. Yeah.
There, like, I just don't think that they do anything. And in a lot, like, I think Tendi is an attempt to change that because, you know, here it's just the Orion women are sold as sex slaves. It's like it's because that's all you knew from TOS is like the women have to be sexy and they have to be green skinned, and that's how this species is defined. And so there's just not a lot of ways to go with that. And even if you do Tendi as kind of like, we're not all like that, it's almost a joke for Tendi, really, because how undeveloped the species is. To have her be the one exception to the rule, or to say that there are other exceptions, is the joke almost there is to say we're not all exactly like what everyone knows of this group. There's not much else I have to say about the Orions. I don't really like them. I don't think they're worth bringing back all the time.
Yeah, I mean, for the number of times they've brought them back, haven't really fleshed them out that much. Yeah, I would say, like, I think you're right in that, like, even the TOS Klingons have more, you learn more about what their ethos is and their culture is and stuff like that. And even the Romulans, who you only see a couple times, are more interesting. Yeah. The Orions, they've just never really made any attempt really to flesh them out.
Yeah, they're just kind of they're like a combination of Klingon and Ferengi, right? Without the annoyances of being a Ferengi who are only after the money, but they can also fight like Klingons. So it's like I don't know, just not. Well, I mean, at least too middling for either of them.
At least the Ferengi, like, I think the way to compare them to show them how thinly they're drawn is all of those other species. If you take a Cardassian or a Klingon or a Ferengi or a Romulan and take them out of their habitat, there is a way that they will act, and there are things that they will do that are definably those species.
Points with the Orions, of view that they'll have about things,
yeah. With the Orions, what's an Orion like if you take them away from the slave camp? You know,
I just picture them wanting to fight to get back. That's all. Yeah.
The only one we know of is Tendi, and her thing is, well, we're not all like that, so it's a moot point anyway.
Yeah, that's true. All right, we'll just wrap it up then. So, thank you everybody for listening to the show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. You enjoyed our coverage of Borderlands. If you did, you can go to patreon.com/thepensky File. It's the best way to support the show. It's much appreciated. A couple $1 a month to get extra stuff, extra podcasts, extra polls about what we cover, secret Patreon things. There's access to the special channel on the Discord. If you're a captain, you get early access to the podcast if you're a captain in that channel. That's where I post them. And as always, a special thank you to our captain tier supporters: Tarek Latif, Samuel Custer, Joint Mango, Kyle Barrett, Mike Burnett, Andrew Cherlog, Matthew Ross, Michael Pond, Christian Pouch, Matt Cutler, Nick Sergey, Grim Santos, Sean, Bradley Killens, Bradley Howells, Brandon Howells, Dwayne Hackett, Vault 13 Hero, Kevin Reyes, Jordan Cooper, Russell O, Stefan Minton, HH28, Darth Mosk, Derek Zajac, Paul Roscoe, Jacob123, Point Extra G, Patrick Seba, Dave Davies, Johnny Franceschi, Mike Harris, Captain Brazen, Eric Sanchuan, Jakey's Gamer, Kevin Lowry, Corey Martin, William Scheisler, Rayhan Jafford, Nick the Rat, Disbrutta, Edmark Star, Soylent Blues, A Majors, Olivier Pardue, Grapple, John Zorn, Retail, Tom Hickey, Jose Hunter, ZW, Enough Remixes, Captain Munchausen, James McLennan, Beal, Jonas, Tommy Tango, Two Vicks Must Die, Dennis Seifert, Chris McLaughlin, Mutilated Puppet. Thank you very much, everybody, for supporting the show. And now we'll go to our patron comments. Patrons get to leave their comments about the episodes, and we read them on the podcast and react to them. Matt Cabanas Abley says, Borderland, a disappointing come down after the fantastic episode Home. They took the concept of what could have been a fascinating moral quandary and made it boring as hell by turning the augments into a caricature of toxic masculinity. 2 geniuses named Soong out of 5.
You know,
How do
it's
you
funny.
define toxic masculinity?
Oh, Jesus. I don't know.
I don't even know what the phrase means, really. I don't think, because there's like a medical definition, but the medical definition is fucking stupid. So I never know what people mean by it. Would I call them toxically masculine? I don't know what the point of the augments are in this. Actually, like I don't know. I don't know. They like to fight each other, but they kind of act like Klingons on a Klingon ship. That's how the Klingons act.
I was just gonna say that, actually. Yeah, that if they were in Klingon makeup, it would be
no different.
No different. Yeah, it actually would probably be better, honestly.
Yeah.
At least you can kind of
tooth crunching.
Yeah, at least you can overact through some heavy makeup or whatever, and you've got the Klingons are kind of intense people kind of thing backing you up instead of just being summer stock rejects.
I interrupted you. Were you going to say something after that comment?
I was actually going to. That's what I was going to say. Is the thing about the Klingons.
Oh, the Klingons. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. That is. It's interesting. I'm not sure if it means anything. Matthew Ross says, Borderland, I appreciate that producer Manikoto was trying to align the show with TOS to make Enterprise hew closer to what fans were looking for and complaining about after and during the Xindi arc. That said, this episode, I think, had too much going with the Orions and the augments. Obviously, the upgraded Enterprise is still very weak, and Archer not ordering a more aggressive defensive stance was ridiculous. The augments with their feathered hair and just so ripped clothing kept reminding me of John Bon Jovi more than genetically enhanced humans. Brent Spiner as an evil Dr. Soong writing on paper was interesting, but to me, a little lazy linking Data to a line of evil scientists. 3 very light Blaylocks out of 5.
Do you know what they actually... They look like... Queensryche from the Queen of the Reich video.
Yeah,
that's exactly what
that was the one that we covered. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
With the sci-fi years in the future Empress, whatever, has conquered the universe.
Yep.
Yeah, I do. Just in response to Matt's comment, I do want to stress I like the Soong thing. I wish they would do something more interesting than what they tend to do with it. TNG avoided the topic. Enterprise might have time because they have 2 episodes left with him. And Picard, I don't know what the point of that Soong was, just outside of just being a reference and a guy who knows how to build a golem. Lest we forget, Clay. See, I had to review before this podcast. The season of Picard ended with Picard dying of his terminal disease and having his mind put into a robot body that was designed to die normally in a normal human lifespan, effectively dodging the problem that Picard had.
One of the more baffling creative decisions I think I've ever seen in any television or movie.
At least have the balls to be like, he's immortal now, motherfuckers. Like, what are you going to do? Picard is around forever. Yeah. Until Patrick Stewart dies.
Oh my God. It's so, why? What is even the point of doing that? If you're just gonna not go all the way with it, like either kill him or don't put him into his brain into a body that's also going to die. He's going to die of natural causes. He was dying of natural causes.
Yeah,
he had a disease.
I
don't know. Absolutely mind blowing.
It was weird. Yarpy says, welcome to the gratuitous fan service guest star. That being said, Brent Spiner is very good as Arik Soong. I mostly like the stuff with the augments, and the augments being cast like this is a CW show works. And I've always liked Alec Newman. The costuming is a bit iffy, though. 4 stars.
I don't know if I would call that a fan service guest cast, because I mean, there's a story that they're telling.
He fits,
and he makes sense for the story. Yeah. It's not like they just cast him as a. It's less gratuitous fan casting than Rene Auberjonois was,
Yes. Or to keep the Picard metaphor, Jerry Ryan. Well, I guess that's different though because she's the character, right? So I guess Rene Auberjonois would be the good example from this one. Was there any other? There was no other Star Trek recurring people on this, right? I don't think so.
I don't think, not humans anyway. I mean, there's a few.
Oh, Ethan Phillips plays a Ferengi. So the Neelix from Voyager plays a Ferengi.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Season. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Cal Barrett says, Borderland are part one of Hannibal Soong and his sexy CW augments with a special guest appearance by the compass Stephen King used in high school. This season of Enterprise is all about humanity reaching for a better future, so it's quite apt for it to truly begin with an arc which questions humanity and its flaws by putting them into conflict with the engineered Ubermensch who believe that they are the future of the species. While I do like the arc and the new structure of the season, I've always felt that this one could have been a two-parter without the unnecessary diversion to the Orion slave market. And with this episode, the NX-01 becomes my favorite ship interior of the franchise, mixing the tight naval feel with some much-needed added color from the new blue doors and carpet, although someone should have at least vacuumed. It's also worth noting that the Makos are still stationed on the ship, so long may your Balthazar Edison impression continue. 4 cameos by J.G. Metzler out of 5.
I forgot about whose comment was that?
That was Kyle's.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, I forgot the Makos were still there. They have just completely fallen into the background. They were just another more people to get punched in this episode.
Yeah, and other people to. I did like the scene. I don't know how effective it was, but I really like the idea of the augment saying, I'm going to take you hostage in 2 seconds. And no one is able to stop him from doing it. I really thought that was a great augment thing to do. Very clever. I really didn't like him sort of groping Archer's throats and giving him like a larynx massage. I thought that was unnecessary, but I only thought of it because there's a Mako in that scene who is not quick enough on the draw to stop anything from happening, and that's their entire points in this. They also get shot when the augments board the Enterprise. They're all standing in the hallway and get shot.
Yep.
That's it for that comment. I don't know if I could say that the NX-01 becomes my favorite interior. I do like the way it looks. It's kind of clean now, I guess, or it's more defined. Like I can see stuff more easily on it. It doesn't just look like a wall of gray that I think the previous seasons had. So I'm all for that. I like lights. Next comment.
What was the reason that they made sure to after they got all of the cobalt or something they had on the ship to use to buy the ensign back, which I guess that's just gone now because they just actually paid money for him. Yeah. Why did they make sure that they didn't take the thing off of his neck? Were they going to use that to? Because that.
Why aren't they doing
he
that?
Had the
he kept it on and deactivated it.
Yeah, and then he handed it off to Trip so he could like do something with it, but I don't remember why. I don't know. I couldn't remember if it ever came back. Was it to find the others maybe or something?
I don't remember. I don't know if they say in this scene why it was happening. Maybe it's a version of the bug gun, or just like I just want to know how this thing works.
I just want to have it because then we have it, you know.
We'll see. I don't think they say in this episode what they were doing. I think my brain just took it as, they're definitely going to use this to find somebody kind of a thing. Or it's going to turn into a James Bond device where Archer gets stuck somewhere and he needs to use it for some reason.
They probably slipped it into Soong's pocket or something, and that's how they track him through light speed or some shit.
Sure. Yeah. I wonder if the timing works out for that. Grapple John Zorn says, Enterprise is like the cover band of an all-Star Trek series. It continues to deliver an arguably better product than TNG. Let's compare this Spiner vehicle with Nimoy's outing. But it's 15 years too late to impress anyone. While cover bands often provide more polish than the source material, their nature doesn't allow them to have hits of their own. Like a cover band, maybe we should just judge Enterprise's effectiveness on its ability to deliver sentimentality and nostalgia, rather than expecting it to sit on the cutting edge. It's nice to see Brent Spiner with something new to do, and turning over some old TOS themes with Archer and the gang. While objectively this episode is yet another 3 in a river of 3s, perhaps we should just judge Enterprise for what it delivers, instead of bashing it for the heights it fails to reach. This is interesting, but your cover band metaphor is wrong in this sense. If you've ever gone to see a cover band, it's a better performance than the real band at that point in their real band's career, usually. The real band has ceased to care about their old material, and the cover band lives for that material. The cover bands that I've seen that have played done Zeppelin, the Police, and some other things have all been fantastic. They've been better than any of real, quote unquote, real band performances that I've ever seen because of the energies there. Enterprise doesn't have cover band energy to it. Enterprise has original band energy, I would say.
Yeah, I was gonna say it has cover band energy. It doesn't have tribute band energy because the tribute bands.
Okay, sure. Oh, sure. Am I confusing? Am I mixing band types there? I guess it could be.
Well, I mean, it's a stupid distinction, but Enterprise feels like a Star Trek cover band you would see at a bar, as opposed to a Star Trek tribute band who has all of the shit and all of the pyro and stuff, and they're playing at the House of Blues or something.
Yeah. The lead singer is calling himself Captain Archer. And
yeah, exactly. What would the Star Trek tribute band be called?
It'd be like this. It'd be one of the Star Trek podcast names that's been taken.
Right?
At this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess maybe Grapple John Zone has a better point there about it. If you're thinking about if he wants to specify a bar cover band. I guess that's fair. Are we too harsh on what Enterprise is trying to do?
What are they trying to do at this point? Because they're not
at this point.
They're not doing really what the original outset of the show was, which is to be the prequel show that kind of fills in the gaps. I mean, I guess they kind of are, but it's that's not really.
Arguably, they are by connecting to TOS a little bit more here with the augments and Soong and stuff. I guess it comes back to my point at the start is when I was watching this with Amy. I think it's fair to be critical of the show if this is a show that's now built for you need to be familiar with the material for any of this to make sense, because I think that we're the same with our coverage of Discovery and Picard, when it's this is way too many references. If you're unfamiliar with this, what's your incentive to keep watching this show? Because you don't understand any of the references that they're making. I think that's a failure of Enterprise's season so far. If that's what they're going to try to do, to just connect things, it's not. My baseline for a show is that the show should strive to do what it's trying to do. And I think Enterprise failed badly at that its first 3 seasons. And then its 4th season, it's just doing a fan giveaway. This is very early, but if they continue down this line, if it's all sort of connecting to the past, that feels very fan giveaway. We're being canceled at the end of the year type thing.
Yeah. And I know the final episode is going to very much feel like they're the Grateful Dead cover band that for their last show, Phil Lesh showed up to play with them or something like that. I know that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I think this episode has a lot more potential than what it ended up being. Cause I agree with you. I also like we'll save this. I don't know how many more comments there are, but
yeah, I'll finish the comments and then, My only sentence is that I liked what this did more than anything in the Xindi arc tried to do. But I still didn't think this was a huge success. But I was more interested in the concept of what they were doing here than the search for the Xindi in any of those episodes, Even though I don't think they delivered on what they could have done in the way that you were just saying.
Yeah, I think for me the problem is that on paper it looks really good.
Yeah.
The idea is really good, but usually I give a lot of slack to stuff like that where it's oh, this is a really interesting idea that they just didn't really they couldn't really ever figure it out, but I give them a lot of points for the idea. This one I don't know if the idea really made it off the page in a way that I could give it extra points for that.
Nick the Rat says, Borderland, I miss those bumpy-headed Klingons. Holding T'Pol up like a toy was ha. I thought you can't fire weapons while in warp. The Soong genetic line must suck. They all look the same. 4 out of 5. Rayo says, Archie gives T'Pol a compass and a welcome aboard present, a gift so useless in space I actually found it kind of charming in a dumb way. I also like T'Pol struggling to be polite over a gift that's totally illogical in nearly every conceivable way. It was a fun character moment. That said, the augments dressing in torn clothing trying to evoke Khan's crew was too on the nose and illogical for me, and the Orion slave market too much of a detour. Delving into the untapped topic of the Eugenics War was an interesting and something a prequel series could take advantage of, so it's puzzling why they waited until now to tackle the topic. Overall, not a bad idea to return the show to more of a TOS footing. At least the concept holds my interest as a Star Trek fan. 3 out of 5.
I do really like the idea that the the clothing style for the augments throughout all of history is very, very tied to the late 80s and early 90s.
Yeah. Not sure what that says about them. They should just go minimalist. That would be they all just wear black t-shirts, unripped, and black jeans, and just never have to think about what their clothing is.
Well, then they would be isn't that basically what they wore in that Deep Space Nine episode where they're all in the mental institute together? All of
the statistical probabilities. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that the one you think where Bashir befriends the crazy people who are good at yeah. Christian Pouch says, Borderland, I like little moments, like T'Pol as an official commander and getting the compass from Archer. Spiner's pretty good. The augments all look absolutely ridiculous, but I do like Alec Newman as Malak for all the scenery he is trying, to chew. I don't think the augment perspective is particularly interesting, however, as they're pretty much just violent thugs. Soong, however, is more interesting, and I wish they had a chance to discuss his views. You and me both. Olate Librarian says, Brent Spiner looks like he's having fun, which is admirable when reprising the same role again and again and again. Phlox's comments about Chip's Southern accent seem like pretty deep knowledge of Earth history for an alien, given how widespread slavery was. The costume department, wasn't that Soong that?
Yeah, it was
Phlox
Soong,
is there talking, but Soong brings it up, but Phlox maybe talks about it. Given how widespread slavery was, the costume department outdid themselves by finding a way to use even less fabric than usual on the Orion slave girl this time. 3 out of 5. They had to make that strap tight to make sure that there was no chance of a wardrobe malfunction on her.
Yes, that was a tight strap.
Thomas Darnell says, Borderland, good to be done with the Zindiarch and temporal nonsense and to get down to a little bit of what the show can actually do well. The lawless sleaze of a pre-Federation galaxy really gives us a lens to appreciate prior, set later series, similar to First Contact. For the episode, Soong is a very dark character. He's kind of like Harry Mudd, but sinister, very lore. I think it's just a 4, just for the fun.
Wow.
Thank you very much, patrons. A couple 4s in that one. A mix of scores. Some 2s, some 3s, and some 4s, I think. Thank you very much, patrons, for leaving your thoughts. If you want to leave your thoughts, you can become a patron at patreon.com/thepenskyfile, and you can leave them on the post on the Patreon. Clay, on a scale of 1 to 5, what are you going to give Borderland?
I think I'm going to give it a 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't want to say defend yourself, but why a 2, I guess? I'm a little bit surprised.
For all the things I already said, I found it kind of hard to follow. I thought the 2 storylines running parallel, like that stuff is fine, but none of it was really interesting. So I didn't think it was worth doing any of that stuff. I don't know. It was a miss for me.
I'll give it a 3, I think. I wonder if it's, I try not to do it. I mean, I think that I do think it's a flawed episode, but I guess its flaws didn't make it as confusing to me. And as I said earlier, like the fact that I knew Soong and I understood this augments thing that they were trying to do, it felt like they were trying to do something that I appreciated. They never really got around to it, but I don't think that it was because of the fact that they screwed up the story in any way. So I think it's just pretty generic to me. The worst part of this episode, I think, is the Orion market aspect to it, because I think it's needlessly distracting and it doesn't seem to do anything by the end of where they end up. You know, it's just a jaunt that they go on.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with all of that, but I would also say the same thing about the augment stuff, where they're just bitching at each other and politicking with each other. So those things together for me don't really a great episode make.
Yeah. I'll stick with a 3. You can give it a 2. That'll knock down the average for us at the end of the season. So that's it. Clay gives it a 2. I give it a 3. Thank you very much for listening to our coverage of Borderland. Patreon.com/The File if you want to support the show. It's the best way to do it. Lower Decks continues. Enterprise continues. I think that's it. I have some upcoming, I don't know where we are now, but I think I have some upcoming episodes where I'll be having a guest on to revisit an old episode. So that'll hopefully add a little bit of variety, or a good way to have the revisits, which are usually on Patreon, go out to a wider audience and to have kind of a callback to the way that the podcast started, which is having a guest on, but also not interfering with our continuing main show coverage of Enterprise. So we'll have the two, kill two birds with one stone at that point. Gives you guys another podcast episode, and you can hear someone else who might have shockingly different opinions about things like Enterprise than we do.
Someone else from who, Wes? Because there seems to be one voice that will be
maybe someone who wouldn't give this goddamn episode a 2 will be on the podcast to talk about
someone with lower standards. I see. Okay, I see how it is.
I think the Carbon Creek is the biggest difference we've ever had. I think it's the only episode we've been 2 away from each other on. I give it a 4. You gave it a 2.
Yeah. Okay.
My head, I remember Visitor. My head, for some reason, I remember you giving Visitor a 4, which is not the case. You gave it a 5. But
did I really?
You did, yeah. And I think that would be the biggest schism, even though not numerically, because Visitor is potentially, like, in my opinion, the best Star Trek episode of all time. So you to give it a 4 would be like, wow, that's a huge difference of opinion.
That's interesting, because I remember our conversation being you liking that one a lot more than I did.
Yeah.
So that actually kind of surprises me that I actually gave it a 5. Not to saying that
maybe I just couldn't type in a 4. I just couldn't bring myself to be like, Clay gave this a 5.
Sounds interesting to me that all of a sudden Wes is looking back on all these episodes that he likes that maybe I didn't like as much, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, let's get someone new on the show to talk about episodes we've already talked about. Like, say, ones that I really liked, that I can hire some sort of plant to agree with me on.
My cactus with googly eyes will be on the screen where you are right now, live from New York. So that's it. That'll come out every once a month or something, I think. So it's not going to be too constant. It has been the function of the Patreon. So if you're interested in past Patreon topics where we recovered, where we revisited episodes, that's the best place to go. Clay, do you have anything you want to say before we're done?
Keep checking out Rotten Horror Picture Show. We got American Werewolf in London came out recently. We got The Invitation that maybe has come out by this point. I don't know what week we're in.
I think it has.
Badass is still trucking along. We've got we're almost done with that. We've only got 3 episodes left, 3 of our episodes left of the season and the series, really. Coming into September, we'll be doing Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, for our Patreon coverage of the Friday the 13th series. It's one final chapter, final Friday. I guess there's only 2. I thought there was more definitive end subtitles in that series, but I guess there's only 2.
Declarative statement. Ending with a strong...
There's two definitive ending subtitles, and there's also 2
He'll be back. Return.
Yeah, well, new generation type subtitles. There's part 5, which is the New Blood. No, part 7 is the New Blood. Part 5 is New something. I forget what it is.
What is it's new? Not
part
new
4
is new.
Part 4 is final chapter. Part 5 is
New Beginning.
I think it might be new. Well, I can just look it up, I suppose. This is a test for the people who sit in to the end of the show.
This is the good stuff where we Google topics.
A New Beginning, Part 5. Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. Friday the 13th, Part 7, the new blood. So there you go.
That's it. You guys can check out all that at patreon.com/thepensky file. I've said it enough. Just go there, support the show. Voyager's coming because of the patrons. And thank you very much. All right, I guess we're done, Clay. That's it. I gave it a 2. Clay gives it a 3. We'll be back with the next episode, which is...
Flip that. I gave it a 2. You gave it a 3.
Correct. Whatever I just said.
Look at you. You're just trying to influence and misrepresent my votes on this show. I can see where this is headed.
I don't know why I was so shocked you gave it a 2. It makes sense to me. It's not like it's like a 5 and you're giving it a 2 or something. It's a pretty average episode. It's Cold Station 12 is the next one. Cold Station
12.
That's the station that the embryos were stored at that they were talking about.
Is that like Ice Station Zebra?
Every drink just comes with too much ice. There's too much ice in this drink. That's it. Thanks very much, guys. We will see you later.